こんにちは、ハリケーンフットボールです。今回の教材はリーズユナイテッドの田中碧に関する動画です。リーズユナイテッドはチャンピオンシップ第32節でワトフォードと対戦し、4対0で大勝しました。田中碧は変わらず堅実なプレーだったと言えるでしょうし、得点したプレーにも絡んでもいましたが、他のプレーヤーの活躍もあって、田中碧の活躍も薄まったようにも感じます。今回はワンリーズファンチャンネルのマッチリアクション動画で、田中碧のほか、目立ったプレーヤーについて話しています。この試合ではグルエヴと田中碧のボランチの新しいペアでしたが、グルエヴとのペアでも中盤が機能しただけでなく、グルエヴが引き立ったのも、グルエヴの新しいプレースタイルが見れたのも、田中碧の存在が大きいと話しています。実際にどのように話しているのか、チェックしてみましょ
う。But the selection didn't even have Pascal in tonight. And I do always have to include this. Ramazani and Nonto weren't playing. And you're kind of looking at it now and going, well, there's a reason why. Aronson, want to touch on him, as I've just mentioned, from a defensive perspective, in possession, and from a pressing perspective, you could tell he'd had a rest. He needed that. He needed that time out the side. 110% he needed that, because I'm seeing Brendan Aronson, a different Brendan Aronson from Coventry. That was a completely different Brendan Aronson for me. In terms of just on the ball, maybe the rest, maybe just that legginess he got. And I think he got it towards the back end of the game today, I will say that. But he's played so many minutes for Leeds United. So impressive. So impressive in there. Gruev. So, once again, someone who isn't my favourite sort of midfield player in terms of a profile. I'm much rather having Rothwell in there in terms of a profile of player. I love the player. Almost, yeah, guys, my archetype for a wonderful midfield player has been Steven Gerrard. Him and Zidane, my favourites for midfield players. Stay with me here. In terms of what I love from a midfielder, it's getting the ball from deep, driving at the heart of the opposition, never losing the ball, being able to accomplish all of your passing areas, and that's what Joe Rothwell is. But Gruev, for me, is a specific type of midfielder, of which is quite unique, okay? What I absolutely love about Gruev, and at no fault of his own, this is just a different type of midfielder. What you kind of see the presence of Gruev when you've had Gilavogui in there. And I've just part what I'm talking about with Rothwell for just a second. But when Gilavogui has been in there and he's not showing for the ball, which you need to start, I think in those positions for Leeds United, playing for the club that we're at the level you're at, you need to be showing for the ball on the right or left-hand side if you're in our midfield. I don't think he was doing that. Gruev, he's just everywhere. He's absolutely everywhere. And sometimes he's not doing the right thing. Sometimes it's maybe a little bit you're thinking to yourself, is he going forward enough? But with Tanaka in that midfield, Tanaka is the defensive one. And that is the confusing thing about this midfield right now, because I was always thinking Tanaka, Dusseldorf, the number 8, Japan, a little bit further forward. That is not the case. When you get Gruev and Tanaka in that midfield, there's one player who gets further forward, and that's Gruev. And weirdly enough, because I never thought he was this sort of profile, Gruev's license when he goes forward is much better than Gruev's license last year, when you had kind of the Kamara and Gruev yin and yang, of which Kamara would get further forward. I think Gruev actually flourishes when he's next to Tanaka and he can get a bit further forward, which if you were to tell me that a year ago, I'd have said, no way, he's a limited midfielder. I was wrong. And I actually don't think that he can do the things that Rothwell can do, which is drive at the heart of the defense and is so good on the ball and can make things happen in that respect. But Gruev is always available for the ball. He's always available on the right-hand side and the left-hand side. And he's absolutely everywhere in terms of being able to close possession down, being able to cut off those passing lanes. His perception in that midfield of when to make that move to cut off the passing lane. He basically looks at the shape of Loser in that game, the defensive playmaker, and he knows when Loser's going to literally distribute his body in a certain way to try pass it to certain parts of the pitch. Gruev anticipates that so well. He's so perceptive in that midfield. Really, really good performance from him tonight. And I've seen a massive elevation of him in terms of when he's next to Tanaka, which is something to keep an eye on. Brendan Aronson, we've spoken about. Dan James, I don't really know what to say with Dan James anymore. It's just got to that stage of which Dan James is just, he's undroppable. I've always talked about the technical footballer and in Connor. You always talk about this technical footballer and Nonto and Ramazani. And I love that. I think football's not as linear as to say that Ramazani and Nonto aren't going to work in the Premier League. If anything, they might not work in the Championship, but they could definitely work in the Premier League. And I think that's how football works. We've seen that with many other football players. I think Jibber Jabber made a really good point on Twitter the other day that you saw Bamford score 16 goals, then 17 goals in the Premier League. You've seen Rutter gets 6 goals in the Championship, and he's already got 4 goals in the Premier League. It's not as linear to say that just because they're not working now, because they're not playing, they won't work in the Premier League. But what is right now so clear is how good is Manor Solomon. At the start of the season, I wasn't sure. It wasn't a Manor Solomon ability level. It wasn't. You can go back to all the videos I've made earlier on in the season when I questioned Manor Solomon. The question I had for Manor Solomon is, as a 25-year-old who's been cast out by Tottenham Hotspur at that point in the season because he's had 3 major surgeries before his 25th birthday, and he's been in and out. Can he work at Leeds United in terms of fitness and been able to consistently play and gain momentum? I can't believe the level. I can't believe the level. I can't believe how good he's got. Like, right now, I absolutely, I from a technical level, I think Ramazani's great. There's no way he's coming in right now. And that again tonight, I'm looking at Aronson, I'm looking at James, but I'm looking at Manor Solomon. I think he's the X factor in this team now. He is the boy. He's so good defensively. He's completely underrated. The amount of ball recoveries he makes in Leeds United's third is insane. And in the attacking third, when we're pressing up, he is the man who wins it back every single time for Leeds when we're pressing as a unit. 3-4 going forward. It's Solomon who wins it back. Solomon forces the mistakes consistently in the press. Everyone talks about Aronson. I think Aronson was brilliant tonight. The best presser in that front 4, the most successful presser in that front 4, 110% is Manor Solomon. Manor Solomon is everywhere when it comes to it. And on the ball, his pass selection, I always go on about this, but his pass selection right now is so good. His final product is so good. He is so good. And there is a complete correlation with how Leeds are doing on that left-hand side and the production and the build-up on that left-hand side with Manor Solomon. I love him and Firpo together as well. Firpo on that overlap, him selecting his runs, not all the time, so Watford can counter-attack with Chakvetadze. Just doing it with a mature selection in terms of how many times he goes on that overlap, on the underlap. Wow, what a performance from him as well. But Manor Solomon, my God, I did not expect it. I didn't expect him to get this consistency when it comes to playing. And the energy and endeavour and lack of almost niggles he gets as well. Wow, I can't believe that. Tottenham Hotspur must be absolutely cringing, by the way. They must be absolutely cringing. You've got a senior professional at Leeds United now. A mate of mine texted me the other day. He said, how's Solomon doing? He looks absolutely unreal. Can we take him back? You can't take him back at the minute, but it does maybe pose the question of what's going to happen in the summer with this boy, because I'll tell you what, I can't believe the level he's got to. No way would I have predicted that. No way. Now let's go to the back 2. Ampadu and Rodon, fresh partnership in the back 2 today, barely troubled. And I thought, just reading the play. No, not needing to get into the stupidity that we got into last season with Emmanuel Dennis and Cooper when Dennis just finished his career, but just maybe dropping off. A little nudge in the back, drop off, win that header, nudge in the back, just smart little, once again, using that word, perceptive moves from the centre-back. Nothing stupid, just smart. You don't want to get involved in the real physical altercations. Just give yourself that yard. Pop in front of them. Predict that pass from the midfielder into the attacker. Pop in front of them. You want to win that little header? Just a little nudge in the back. Win the header. So smart from the centre-backs, and you saw it today. Both absolutely brilliant. Ampadu included in that. Strout, for me, comes back in against Sunderland, which I think is going to be really harsh, but I think your best centre-back comes back in. I think your best midfielder goes into the midfield, even though Greve has been absolutely outstanding tonight. Leeds bossed the midfield. Didn't expect that to happen. I thought that midfield was going to be a little bit of a turnover. It's going to be 50-50. We bossed it. The transitional element of Leeds tonight were rapid. Facilitated by Brendan Aronson, whose movement was excellent, always picking up that central space, getting it on the half-turn. Brendan's game, I think, you've seen Brendan, for me, at the beginning of the season, falling a little bit. When he gets on that half-turn, and he has got that low centre of gravity, he's not a big lad. When the ball comes in from Tanaka, it's automatically now that open body stance, which I go on about on this channel so many times. The ball, in my opinion, in the start of the season was coming into Brendan Aronson, and because of safety, maybe because of a little bit of a worrisome nature towards the Leeds United crowd with what happened with him and him coming back in, he was a little bit worried about making mistakes. So he had the closed body approach. The ball would come into him. He'd naturally go back to the centre-back. Now you look at Brendan Aronson in that number 10, his confidence is sky high. You can tell, and with a break, that assisted him massively. His open body stance, so receiving the ball automatically, going on to his forward foot is all there to see, and it was all there to see against a very good Watford midfield tonight. Joel Peru got his goal, thought grew into it. First half, I didn't think it was great, but he grew into the game in the second half 100%. Was getting into the right spaces as well, and there was actually a couple of times where I thought Junior Firpo on that overlap should have found him. Really good movement from Peru in that middle. Dan James is just Dan James at the moment in time. Jayden Bogle is the best right back in the division. Tanaka, you know, it's weird, isn't it? If I'm to criticize something, it is how Tanaka, and how am I criticizing? And I'm not. It's constructive. It's positive. But one thing I'd like to see a little bit more from Al Tanaka is maybe that forward-thinking play. I think sometimes now, maybe it's because Gruev's actually getting a little bit further forward than him now, and we have this attacking presence. But I think the handbrake is weirdly a little bit more on with Tanaka, and he's looking at just keeping that ball ticking a little bit more. But overall, I've got absolutely no complaints, and I want to get your thoughts in the comment section below, everybody.
次は解説です。今回は、比較的普段使いできるもの、カジュアルな会話で使えるものが多くありました。そういうものは逆にトイックのような試験に出るようなものではなくなることも多いですが、普段使いできるものは、日常会話で使ってみてください。日常の中で英語を使う機会がない方、英語を話すような機会が欲しいような方はご連絡ください。それでは本日の解説をチェックしてみましょう。
Maybe the rest, maybe just that legginess he got.
レギネスは特にスポーツやサッカーの文脈で使われる表現で足の疲れや動きの鈍さを意味し、試合の終盤や連戦の影響で選手の足が重くなり、スムーズに動けなくなる状態を指します。スポーツ以外の文脈ではぎこちなさや長すぎる手足による不格好さなどの意味で使われることもあります。
Maybe the rest.Maybe just that legginess he got, and maybe the rest. Maybe just that legginess he got. And my archetype for a wonderful midfield player has been Steven Gerrard. Him.
アーキタイプは典型的な例、原型、模範を意味する名詞で、あるカテゴリーの代表的なモデルや理想的な形を指し、最も基本的なパターンや元となる方というニュアンスがあります。例えば、理想的なミッドフィールダーのアーキタイプといえば、完璧なミッドフィールダー像といったニュアンスで使われます。心理学、文学、ビジネスなど様々な分野で使われる単語です。
My archetype for a wonderful midfield player has been Steven Gerrard. Him. My archetype for a wonderful midfield player has been Steven Gerrard. Him. Okay. What I absolutely love about Gruev, and at no fault of his own.
No fault of は何々のせいではない。何々に責任はないという意味のフレーズで、ある状況や問題が発生した際に、それが特定の人のミスや責任ではないことを強調する表現として使われます。彼のせいではないが、彼の落ち度ではないが、といったニュアンスで使われます。
Okay. What I absolutely love about Gruev, and at no fault of his own. Okay. What I absolutely love about Gruev, and at no fault of his own. Yin and yang, of which Kamara would get further forward.
イン&ヤンは、陰と陽のことで、二つの対照的な要素が互いに補い合い、バランスを取る関係を表す言葉です。サッカーでは、例えば攻撃的な選手と守備的な選手が、それぞれの役割を果たしながらチームのバランスを取るときに使われます。日常会話でも、性格が正反対だけど相性が良い友達や、仕事とプライベートのバランスといった場面で使われることがあります。この表現は、正反対のものがぶつかり合うのではなく、違いがあるからこそお互いを補い合うことを強調します。
Yin and yang, of which Kamara would get further forward. Yin and yang, of which Kamara would get further forward. I think Gruev actually flourishes when he's next to Tanaka.
フラーリッシュは、栄える、成功する、繁栄する、活躍するという意味の動詞で、ビジネス、スポーツ、芸術、自然など様々な分野で使われる単語です。名詞として使われる場合は、華やかな動き、装飾などの意味で使われます。
I think Gruev actually flourishes when he's next to Tanaka. I think Gruev actually flourishes when he's next to Tanaka. I think football's not as linear as to say that.
リニアは直線的な、一直線の、一貫したという意味を持つ形容詞で、数学や物理では線形のという意味で使われますが、一般的な文脈では単純で予測可能な、段階的に進むというニュアンスで使われることが多いです。例えば、成功はリニアではないという表現で使われる場合、成功は一直線には進まない、つまり、順調に進むとは限らないという意味になります。
I think football's not as linear as to say that. I think football's not as linear as to say that who's been cast out by Tottenham Hotspur.
キャストアウトは追放する、排除する、追い出すという意味のフレーズで、主に集団や組織から追い出される、または拒絶される状況を表すときに使われます。社会から追放される、チームから外される、悪霊を追い払うといった文脈で使われることが多いです。
Who's been cast out by Tottenham Hotspur, who's been cast out by Tottenham Hotspur, and there is a complete correlation with
コーリレーションとは相関関係、関連性を意味する名詞で、二つ以上のものがどの程度関連しているか、または影響し合っているかを示すときに使われます。因果関係という意味のコーセーションとは異なり、必ずしも一方が他方を引き起こすとは限らないことに注意が必要です。例えば、勉強時間とテストの点数には相関があるという場合、勉強時間が長いほど点数が高くなる傾向があることを意味しますが、必ずしも勉強時間が長いイコール点数が上がると断定できるわけではありません。
And there is a complete correlation with and lack of almost niggles he gets as well.
ニグルは小さな悩み、軽い痛み、些細な問題という意味の単語で、スポーツ、仕事、日常生活などで大きな問題ではないが気になることを表すときに使われます。また、細かいことにこだわる、小さなことで文句を言う、という動詞としても使われます。
And lack of almost niggles he gets as well. Tottenham Hotspur must be absolutely cringing, by the way.
クリンジは、ひるむ、萎縮する、気まずく感じる、恥ずかしくなるという意味を持ち、動詞と名詞で使われます。もともとは、恐怖や嫌悪で縮こまるという意味でしたが、最近は、見ていて恥ずかしくなる、気まずさを感じるというカジュアルな意味でよく使われます。
Tottenham Hotspur must be absolutely cringing, by the way. You don't want to get involved in the real physical altercations. Just keep.
オールタケーションは、口論、激しい言い争い、口喧嘩を意味する名詞で、特に感情的になって大声で言い合うような状況や、時には小競り合いに発展するような場面で使われます。ただし、ファイトほど物理的な衝突を含むわけではなく、口論が激しくなった状態を指すことが多いです。
You don't want to get involved in the real physical altercations. Just keep. You don't want to get involved in the real physical altercations. Just keep. Maybe because of a little bit of a worrisome nature.
ウォーリーサムネイチャーは心配性な性格、不安を感じやすい性質という意味の表現で、ウォーリーサムは心配な、不安を引き起こすという意味の形容詞で、ネイチャーは本質、性格、性質を表します。このフレーズは人の性格や行動、または状況について話すときに使われます。
Maybe because of a little bit of a worrisome nature. I think the handbrake is weirdly a little bit more on with Tanaka.
ハンドブレークは手動ブレーキ、サイドブレーキという意味の名詞ですが、比喩的に制約、抑制するもの、進行を遅らせるものという意味でも使われます。ブレーキだけでも同じように制約するものを表現しますが、ハンドブレークを使うとより意図的な制限や慎重すぎる態度のニュアンスが強くなり、特にスポーツやビジネスの文脈では全力を出せない状態、ブレーキがかかっているような状況を指すことが多いです。
But I think the handbrake is weirdly a little bit more on with Tanaka. I think the handbrake is weirdly a little bit more on with Tanaka.
いかがでしたか？田中碧について話す箇所はそんなに多くありませんでしたが、他にも活躍したプレイヤーや特別に称賛したいプレイヤーも多い中で、特にグルエヴとのパートナーシップに新鮮さを感じ、それも田中碧だからこそできる、といった感じでしたね。最近はペナルティーボックス外からシュートを打つ場面も明らかに増えていると思いますが、それでもまだ安全なプレーをしがち、というのも間違ってはいないと思いますし、この試合でも、ペナルティーボックスの周辺で田中碧がボールを持った時に、スタジアムのファンからシュートと叫ぶ声が非常に大きかったのも印象的でした。ファンも期待し、田中碧にもっと得点やアシストを期待しているというよりも、田中碧がゴールやアシストをしているところを単純に見たいという感情が強いようにも感じますが、私もその一人なので、どんどんシュートを打ち、リスクを負うような前向きなプレーをもっと見れたら嬉しいと思います。本日もご視聴いただきありがとうございました。 またすぐにお会いしましょう。